Welcome, everybody, to the Monday episode of Arch City Sports. Today, we are transitioning from the baseball season into the hockey season. As fall/winter is here, and the St. Louis Blues begin their 2024-2025 campaign tomorrow versus the Seattle Kraken in Seattle at 3:30 Central Time. Today, we're going to break down the St. Louis Blues 2024-2025 season preview, but also three keys of what to look for versus Seattle in particular tomorrow. But also at the very end, we're holding on to the Cardinals season as every episode moving forward until we knock out every player. We're going to be discussing one player at a time and giving them a grade for the Cardinals for this past season. Before we hop into everything today, make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube, follow and rate the podcast on Spotify or Amazon Music if you're listening over there. And of course, go follow us on all social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, X at Arch City Sports. We would really appreciate that for daily St. Louis sports content and to keep up with everything St. Louis Blues and SLU basketball this fall and winter. Like I said, the St. Louis Blues are the main topic and main focus for today's episode. The Blues are 2-5 in the preseason, which you can't look too in depth into, meaning that it's preseason hockey. Guys have not played in months, and for us, since we didn't make the playoffs, it's been several months since we've played. 6 months, 5 months, something like that. You can't look too in depth about the outcomes. More, you need to focus on individual development and individual improvement throughout the preseason. Dylan Holloway had a very good preseason. He's one that definitely stood out. Philip Broberg, a goal in the last game of the preseason. Those are two guys that we got from the Edmonton Oilers. We kind of finessed out of there from Doug Armstrong. But let's take a look at, and this is the thing that was most important for me, is like what's going to be our line formations going into the season, because we have a lot of guys, a lot of depth, so a couple are going to be left out. And so if it's any kind of look to what the season will look like from what we saw the other night, I believe it was Saturday night versus the Blackhawks, this is what we rolled out with Jeff Bannister. Dylan Holloway, Robert Thomas, and Jake Neighbors on the top line. Alexander Texier, Pavel Buchnevich, and Jordan Kyrou on the second line. Matthew Joseph, Braden Shen, and Kasperi Kapanen on the third line. And then Alexei Toropchenko, Radek Faksa, and Nathan Walker on the fourth line. Defensively, Nick Leddy was paired with Colton Parayko. Philip Broberg paired with Justin Falk. Ryan Suter paired with Matthew Kessel. And, of course, Jordan Binnington will be in net the majority of the season, obviously, if he's healthy. There's two things from this. If this is what it's going to look like on opening night, I would be shocked with a couple things. First, Matthew Kessel getting the nod over like a P.O. Joseph or even a Tyler Tucker would kind of surprise me on that third defensive line pairing. Now, I do kind of like the youth of Matthew Kessel paired with a guy like Ryan Suter, who's been around the game a very long time and had a very successful career. That's one thing to definitely keep an eye on. I think Nick Leddy and Colton Parayko are locks to be on that top line, and Philip Broberg and Justin Falk are locks to be on the second line. Now, I think at some point in the season, we may see Leddy and Broberg flip. I could definitely see a top pairing of Broberg and Parayko at some point, maybe even earlier in this season than later. But I do think Nick Leddy has some left in the tank, and I think he'll be a good pair. I think that top four defensive group, Leddy, Parayko, Broberg, Falk, is very, very good defensively. And hopefully Falk stays healthy. Broberg has offensive upside, along obviously with defensive upside. And then Colton Parayko had probably his best offensive season last year, 10-plus goals. Hopefully he builds off that to be even better offensively this year, because we're going to need one of those guys to kind of step up offensively. Now, hopefully Justin Falk's healthy the whole year and he can fill in perfectly, because we're missing a guy like Torrey Krug, who was very good offensively in the whole defensive group. He was our best offensive defenseman. So hopefully Justin Falk stays healthy. Hopefully Parayko builds off that, and Broberg adds another kind of face in there to help us offensively. The other thing that caught my eye when it comes to the winger group, along with the center iceman, it's Dylan Holloway on the top line, along with Jake Neighbors. I think in my head, I just imagined Thomas, Buchnevich, Kyrou, but Dylan Holloway deserves it, and I would not be shocked if he's on that group with Robert Thomas to help, Robert Thomas being such a dynamic player could really help him elevate his game. And then a guy like Jake Neighbors, it makes sense. Jake Neighbors is going to be one of our topics moving in a couple minutes here, but having a guy like Jake Neighbors play with Robert Thomas on that same line is probably a good idea, because the dynamic ability of Robert Thomas can really rub off on Jake Neighbors, who is very good, as we saw last year, at finishing at the net. Wasn't a big dynamic player himself, only 11 assists on the season, but I think his finishing ability and Robert Thomas, obviously one of the best passers in the game, that might be a really good duo there. And Dylan Holloway showed that he could put the puck in the back of the net in the preseason. So that might be the top line we roll out versus the Seattle Kraken. I do like Buchnevich and Kyrou obviously playing together. Kyrou, he's also going to be a topic we discussed in just a second here. And then Alexander Texier was with them. Matthew Joseph, Braden Shen, Kasperi Kapanen. That's more of that veteran grinded out group there. And then a kind of an exciting fourth line, in my opinion. Alexei Toropchenko continues to improve in his first two seasons, now going to, I believe it's his third season as a Blue. And then Radek Faksa adds a veteran presence on that fourth line, a guy who's been in big games and played in big performances. And then Nathan Walker as well. He had at least one goal this preseason that I saw. So I think overall there's a lot of depth with this group. It's about, can we get scoring depth? Can lines 1 through 4 score, or are we going to be really reliant on Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou and Jake Neighbors to do all of the scoring? If that's the case, it might be a rougher season offensively for us. I really like what we have defensively with, like I said, Leddy, Parayko, Broberg, Falk, Ryan Suter, Matthew Kessel, Tyler Tucker, P.O. Joseph. We haven't even talked about him. So there's a lot to be excited for, especially defensively. It's just offensively, can we get enough depth scoring lines 1 through 4? Because I if healthy, Robert Thomas is going to put up. Again, he's another one that I'm going to talk about in a second here, what we can expect from him. But he's a guy that I think could put up big numbers this year and kind of elevate himself into a top 20 player in the game. Same thing with like a Jordan Kyrou, maybe not to that level because of Thomas's defensive ability and playmaking. Jordan Kyrou needs a 40-goal season this year. If we're gonna go far, he needs 40 goals. Robert Thomas needs 100 points, and the depth needs to continue to produce as well. So let's take a look at 3 keys to the season, starting with number 1. I kind of just touched on it. Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou need to take a step forward. Robert Thomas, 86 points last year. Can he bump that up to a 100-point season? If he does that and he continues to produce defensively like he can, Robert Thomas is a top 15 player in the NHL. So hopefully that's what we see this year. Robert Thomas moving from 86 points to his first 100-point season. Then with Jordan Kyrou, last year, I believe it was 31 goals. He had a plus minus. I believe it was minus 22. Can Jordan Kyrou get 40 goals and get that plus minus closer to a positive? It could even be neutral, but he needs to be better defensively. Now, again, plus minus is kind of hit or miss because you're on the ice when this happens. It's not all your fault all the time. But Jordan Kyrou needs to produce this year. Hopefully, if this line formation is true and he's with Buchnevich a lot, that's a guy that can set him up big time. I do think at some point in the year we see Kyrou and Thomas together. It may even be tomorrow night versus the Seattle Kraken. But Jordan Kyrou needs a very big season. These two guys need to, even though Buchnevich is a great player, the upside for Neighbors and Holloway is really high, and Broberg. We need to look at Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. And when the social media and the media all around looks at the St. Louis Blues, like who are the leaders of the St. Louis Blues? It has to be Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou. Those two names have to be at the top of the list for guys on our team if we're going to be successful this year. Key number 2. Can we get some Jake Neighbors consistency this year? Can he replicate what he did last year, or is he going to take a drop off, a step back? Last year, 27 goals, 11 assists, 38 points. He was minus 16. Not an overall good season last year for our team, but 27 goals, 11 assists. Can he get 25 plus goals again this year? And can he get that assist number up to closer to 20? If he produces 45, 50 points instead of 38 points, and his plus minus gets better, and he's showing what he can do defensively and what he can do playing with Robert Thomas on the top line, Jake Neighbors could be a mainstay in our organization moving forward here if he does all that. Number 3, the third key for me is, can Braden Shen have a bounce back this season? Now, you look at the goals and assists. It's not an awful year last year. 20 goals, 26 assists, 46 points, but he was a minus 22. Can he get more to what he's done all his career? This is back-to-back seasons now with Braden Shen having a plus minus over minus 20. He had minus 21 2 years ago, minus 22 last year. Can he get more of like 25 goals with 30 assists for 55 points? That would be really nice. And then can he get that plus minus? 3 years ago, we were a better team, obviously, but he had a plus minus over plus 20. Can he get more to that plus 6, plus 7, plus 8 with this team? I think that's very reasonable to ask. And 25 goals and 30 assists, I think that's very reasonable to ask. Get 5 more goals this year and 4 more assists. According to this line formation he's playing with Kapanen and Joseph, I could see Shen moving up to the top 2 line at some point in the season, whether it probably be in the center, but it could be on the wing. Buchnevich is lined up as the center here, but it's very possible he could move to a wing. Texier can play the center spot a little bit, so he can move down. I think Shen is going to have opportunities to be with more playmakers like Robert Thomas, Jordan Kyrou, Jake Neighbors, Dylan Holloway, Buchnevich, and Texier. He's going to play with those guys at some point this year, whether it be on the power play, whether it be in just the normal line formation. So he's going to have chances to score, and he needs to do so. Now, if he plays with Joseph and Kapanen a majority of the start of the season, don't expect him to score a lot, but it kind of goes back to what I said. Can we get depth scoring? That shouldn't really be an excuse. Obviously, playing with guys like Robert Thomas and Jordan Kyrou elevate your offensive ability, but I think Braden Shen has no excuse of not producing more for us this year. Now, I love his veteran leadership. He's the captain. I love Braden Shen. I got the jersey on this side on YouTube for the YouTube viewers. I got the Braden Shen jersey up behind me. Love the guy. We just need more out of him offensively and defensively this year. Minus 22 cannot happen again this year if we're going to be successful. Taking a look at the Seattle Kraken for the first game of the season. A couple things to look for me personally, and you guys as well listening, is the line formations. That's been a huge topic here in this episode, but it's true. Like, is this what we saw versus the Blackhawks in our last preseason game? Kind of a foreshadowing of what we're going to see throughout the game versus Seattle, but also moving forward. Dylan Holloway, Robert Thomas, Jake Neighbors, top line. I don't hate it. I think just in my head, I had Thomas, Buch, and Kyrou kind of locked in my head, but I kind of like that because you're distributing the scoring a little bit more. You get kind of top heavy when you talk about Thomas, Buchnevich, and Kyrou. And that's not taking away anything from Texier, Holloway, or Neighbors, but we've seen consistent years of 30-plus goals, 80-plus points out of Thomas, Buch, and Kyrou, that if you put them on the top line, I'm not saying the Holloway, Texier, Neighbors line wouldn't produce, but we know, I just feel like it's top heavy. You have a guy like Robert Thomas that can pretty much play with anybody and can distribute the puck to anybody. Have him play with young guys like Neighbors and Holloway. Have Buchnevich play with Texier and Kyrou. And then that kind of distributes the scoring more to where it's not just one big push and then they get off the ice and you don't know where your scoring is going to come from. I like that. I like that a lot. So we'll see what they roll out versus Seattle. The other thing is, I kind of want to see what the minutes are like for Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway, the 2 new guys that we got about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago from the Oilers. Great move by Doug Armstrong, by the way. What are we going to get minutes-wise, and how is Bannister going to play them minutes-wise with Broberg and Holloway? Broberg, I think, is a top 2 defensive line pairing potential guy for us. I don't think he will be tomorrow night. I think he'll be with Justin Falk on that second line. And then Dylan Holloway, if he's playing on the first line, like, these 2 guys could get major minutes immediately for our team. And I'm not hating on it at all. We'll see how they play out. But they've played in big games with the Oilers, and I think they're prepared, even though they're both young. I think they're both prepared to help be huge contributors to our St. Louis Blues this season. A prediction for the Seattle Kraken game. I predict the Blues win 3-2. I believe the player of the game, in my prediction, Robert Thomas is player of the game with a goal and an assist. A good start to the season, a 3-2 win versus Seattle Kraken. I'm kind of trying to speak it into existence here. So hopefully we get the season started off right in Seattle, and then the home opener later. I believe it's later this week. Also something to look forward to. So Blues hockey is back, guys. Be ready to lock in. It's going to be a lot of fun this year. Hopefully we score enough to make it exciting. I think defensively we're going to be a top 10 defensive group. We don't have extremely dynamic defensive players, but really solid. I mean, Broberg and Falk and Pareko, Letty, Ryan Suter, Tyler Tucker, Matthew Kessel. Like, we have a lot of guys here. P.O. Joseph. I haven't talked about him like at all this episode. These are like 8. Oh, Scott Perunovich is another one. We have like 8 or 9 defensive guys, defensemen that can really contribute to this team, whether it be offensively focused, whether it be, being a Scott Perunovich, or defensively with Philip Broberg and Pareko and Letty and Tyler Tucker is a scrappy guy, and Matthew Kessel is more of a offensive guy. But like, we have a lot of exciting members in that defensive group to kind of keep an eye on, and we have exciting players offensively too. Robert Thomas, that's something to keep an eye on this year. Can he become a top 15 player in hockey? Can he score over 100 points? Like, that's something to keep an eye on for sure. Jordan Kyrou, can he get back to that 40 goal mark? Pavel Buchnevich, can he have another huge season, getting over 30 plus, 35 plus goals? Young guys like Texier and Holloway and Neighbors, can they kind of build off what all 3 of them did last year, whether it be Holloway in the postseason, Jake Neighbors, what he did for us last year with 27 goals. Can he push 30 goals? Like, that's something to definitely keep an eye on. And then the depth of this group, like, the depth is exciting in my opinion. That third and fourth line looks like what it looked like in 2019 when we won the whole thing. We have veteran leadership like Radek Faksa, Matthew Joseph, Braden Shen, Kasperi Kapanen's been around, Toropchenko's young but very explosive at times. Will have amazing. He'll have a couple games this year where he's just the best player on the ice for the majority of the game, and he'll just pop out because he's about 6'6" and he's long as can be, and he'll score 2 or 3 goals in a game, and you'll be like, "Holy cow, what do we have here in Toropchenko?" And then he'll be more defensive the next 7 games. He's just one of those players. And then Nathan Walker. Me knowing Nathan Walker a little bit, I got to meet him. I would love to see him get a lot of playing time. So a lot of things to look forward to this season. And we will be on Wednesday recapping the St. Louis Blues game 1 versus Seattle. So make sure to tune in then. The last thing before we get out of here is the Willson Contreras breakdown. We're breaking down one Cardinals player at a time throughout this offseason, kind of giving them a grade for their season and taking a look back at everything they accomplished in the 2024 season campaign. Willson Contreras, let me pull up those numbers really quick. 262 average, 15 homers, 36 RBIs, and 848 OPS. Now, he only played in, I believe it was 84 games. That OPS was the best OPS on our team, and those 84 games and 848 OPS. When healthy, he was one of the best hitters in all of baseball this year, when he was healthy. But that last part is very key here, when he was healthy, because it was his fewest games played since his rookie year, excluding the COVID season where he had only 58 games played. He played 76 games in his first season, his rookie season, and he played 80, I believe it was 84 games this year. Only 300 at bats. He didn't get a lot of run, and he could have easily been, if he played the whole year, the best offensive player on our team by a large margin if he would have stayed healthy. I give him a B+ for this season, and I think it's just, if he was healthy and he played an entire season and he continued what he did at the very beginning of the season, and let's say he was at 25 homers and 80 RBIs and an OPS pushing 900, he is easily an A, without a doubt. But if we remember this, that last little stretch before he was out for the year and we shut him down, he did not play very well, especially offensively. That average dropped from about 290 to 262. That's where he finished the season. So you have to put all the factors into play here, kind of take account for everything. So I'm going to give him a B+ for his season. A very good season, though, from Willson Contreras. And the biggest question going into next year is, what position is he for us? Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pajes have shown they both need to get playing time. Pedro Pajes is an ideal backup catcher for you, and Ivan Herrera is not so much an ideal backup catcher as your everyday starting catcher, in my opinion. Like, those two guys can split the time, but what do you do with Contreras? I think Contreras could play a little catcher for you next year, but I'm not opposed to the first baseman route for him, getting him DH looks. The biggest thing with Contreras is keeping this guy healthy because he's obviously still shown he's 32 years old. He'll be 33 next May. So in the second month of the season, he'll turn 33. He's still got a couple really good years left in the tank. But the other question is, do we want to move forward with him as our everyday catcher or everyday first baseman? Or can we get a lot for him at the deadline next year? He's got a couple years under contract still. That's something to keep an eye on going into 2025. I don't think he should be your everyday catcher, though, next year. One way or another, if he's playing for us the whole season, if he's either at first base, whatever it may be, DH some to keep him healthy, that's how I look at it, is that Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pages could be your your catcher duo for the next 5 to 10 years. With how Pedro Pages is defensively and did fine offensively, especially in clutch moments. And then Ivan Herrera, how good he was offensively, batting over 300 on the season. Keep those two guys as your everyday catchers, and they're both young. They're both under 25 years old. Keep those two guys, and then let Willson Contreras be your everyday first baseman next year, or DH if he's willing to be first base. And then DH, have him and Burleson or him and Gorman kind of platoon that. DH, obviously Contreras playing every day, but when it comes to DH, getting him off his legs a little bit. But yeah, I think Willson Contreras has a role in this organization still, because I still think we're not going to be a very, very bad team next year. I think we're going to win games. I think we're going to be about 500, depending on what we do this offseason. But we'll see. We'll see how this offseason plays out. I appreciate you guys taking some time out listening to this Monday episode of Arch City Sports. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube. Follow and rate the podcast on Spotify or Amazon Music. Rating it a 5 stars. 5-star helps us out big time. Of course, go follow on Instagram, TikTok, and X for daily St. Louis sports content. A lot of Blues content pumping out soon here, along with SLU basketball. It starts up November 4th against Santa Clara. And then you have, obviously, Cardinals content as we're breaking down every Cardinals player's season and giving them a grade for the season. So go follow over there for all the clips I'll be posting. And I will see you guys on Wednesday, hopefully recapping a St. Louis Blues victory in Seattle. I will see you guys Wednesday for that one.